Rendezvous or Rendezlone? That's the question. Hi, my name is Rick Ward from Your Journey Transitions. During this Corona lockdown, the Crazy Mountain Man has gone ahead with the annual Rendezvous shoot in Eureka, Montana. And he set up his camp and set up everything for the shoot in his backyard, but he doesn't keep up much with world events or the internet, so not quite sure why people aren't showing up. But he has been sending me a lot of content about it, setting up his camp and what he's doing in preparation for the shoot, and some historical stories. And we'll lead off with this one, the story of Rendezvous from the Crazy Mountain Man. Let's have a look at that right now.
Here you go. Sitting here waiting on Rendezvous. Now I've been asked a time or two, what is Rendezvous? Well, I'm up here in Montana, and there's been times when Rendezvous's been down in Wyoming and a place called Utah, and Henry's Fork was a big one a couple times, and we all get together. Somebody asked me, how did Rendezvous start? Where'd it come from? Well, there just ain't no way to know sometimes. But this is how it was told to me. See, way back yonder, long time back, a couple got together in this perfect land, a Garden of Eden. His name was Adam and her name was Eve. And not long after that, something happened. And of course, we all know the little story about that. And we've been paying for it ever since. Always looking for that new Garden of Eden, going off to the other side and searching. And my kind has always gone west. They say the Garden of Eden's over there in the Middle East, in the east, in the middle of something. And I just kept going west. Same with my kin and the kin before them. So where did Rendezvous come from? Came from an idea. You know, it was, well, first rendezvous, as we call the Rocky Mountain Rendezvous, was the 1825, I think we had that year. Henry's Fork, I think. It's hard to remember back then. I don't know, when did he do that? Oh, the military came up, that captain, that young man, Captain Lewis and Captain Clark or something like that. They came out of St. Louis in 1803. And they kind of opened up the whole western side of the country, kind of, sort of. And at the time, President Jefferson, he bought this tract of land, or at least he thought he bought it, but it's kind of been disputed ever since. Ooh, that's hot tea. So, how did Rendezvous start? So the mountain man, about 1806, Lewis and Clark were headed back down the Missouri. Before they got to the Mississippi, they hit the Missouri down there around St. Joe, and they met two characters who, I knew both them young men. They was running from the law, if you want my opinion, but they was headed west. They were looking for beaver. Back in them days, people wanted beaver hats, great big tall beaver hats. And they needed plume after plume after plume. That's what the mountain man, we call beaver pelts to most people. So we looked after them pelts, and they found them beaver up in the Rocky Mountains, these shining mountains that all around us up here. And I'm sitting up here waiting for Rendezvous. I almost think they changed it this year, if you want my opinion. I've been here for 10 days. Ain't never seen nobody. So Rendezvous. In 1806, when them boys came up out of Mississippi, out of Missouri, they left St. Louis, and they trapped for an entire season. I remember they did pretty well. And they took their flat-bottom canoes and they sailed her all down Mississippi, down Missouri, all the way down to St. Louis. And they sold all them first. And them boys like to make $1 million. It was amazing. I don't know what they had. They had so much money. You know, I bet old Squire Jefferson himself didn't have near the money that those boys had that night. So I heard they didn't have near as much next morning. They ran into a little bit of snake oil and drank a little too much and had a little too much fun, but that's how we got our furs down to St. Louis to get money. And so 1807 we took another load down, and 1808 we took another load of furs down, and we trapped and we trapped and we trapped. Now the trapping season, you gotta wait till that fur is nice and up and good in the fall, and you want to get to it before it goes away in the wintertime and before they start scratching themselves in the spring. And so we trap them as we can, and then we winter hole up somewhere and we stretch all the hides and get them all in shape. And then in the springtime, we float down the river all the way down to St. Louis and get rid of our fur. And then about 1824, 25, oh, Henry, he says, you know what we ought to do? And Sublet, the crew, they said, we ought to have them bring their trader stuff up here. So 1825, they had a mountain man rendezvous. They called it a mountain man rendezvous because all of us yahoos, we all brought our plues down there well, we call it Wyoming nowadays, but it was out on the flats. They brought wagon load after wagon load up from St. Louis, and we just went down and set up and we had a good time. I remember Jim Beckworth, he talked about it. He was always a talker, but old Jim, he's talked about it. He said, there's singing and dancing and all kinds of funs and evils you could ever have. And that was true about the first ones. We had friendly Indian tribes, and in 1827 and 1828 we had some unfriendly ones from the Blackfeet, and you know they're good people up there in the Blackfeet, but I'll tell you what, back in them days, you had to look out for them. My sister Tammy, she's a Blackfeet, and hell of a nice girl. Of course, you got to be nice to her, otherwise she's going to take me down again. She's a tough woman. Feel sorry for her husband Lyle. So old brother Lyle and Tammy, they live way out on the coast now. Where were we? Oh, we were rendezvousing. How'd we get here? So the Mountain Man Rendezvous started up in about 1825. And them traders, they brought powder, balls, pretty flowery things, shirts, clothes. We'd wear through our clothes throughout the year. They'd bring us boots, they'd bring us fire start, they'd bring us tobacco. And they brought us whiskey. Man can't survive without whiskey long, that's for sure. They watered it down in them days, put a bunch of arsenic in it, and like I think some of them guys might have set themselves over the top of it and filled it up after they were done drinking the whiskey. Sometimes some of that stuff that they sold us, that rot gut, was horrible. Well, anyway, the rendezvous started, and they'd bring up all their wares, and they'd trade with us, and they'd steal our plues from us, but it saved us a trip down to the city. Nobody liked going to St. Louis. Well, some of them dandy boys did, but the rest of us, we'd just be happy out here in the woods and in the shining mountains. And it's powerful hard work, but you know what? It's a whole lot better than being back in that citified place they call St. Louis. And I remember when they put in St. Joe, Missouri, and we didn't have to take them near so far to St. Louis, but it wasn't near as much fun either. So they'd bring up the wagons and the traders, and they'd set up all these tents, and that's how Rendezvous started. And then we got the competitions. You know, you get a couple old boys together. One of them says, I can throw a hawk better than you can. Next one says, I can throw a knife better than you can. Next one says, well, I can outshoot all you. Pretty soon us boys would grab a hold of our hawk, and we'd grab a hold of this throwing hawk like this, and we'd pitch it. Sure enough, we'd stick it. We'd grab our throwing knife and do about the same, and just like that, there'd be a competition, one after the next. Of course, them days, we just switched over from flintlock to caplock, some of us. Some of us, we kept our old smoke pole flintlocks, and we'll show you them later. But that's what the Mountain Man Rendezvous is. Now, I've been sitting here for pretty close to 2 weeks. They said they's rendezvousing in Eureka this year. And Rendezvous Eureka looks like Rendezlone in Eureka. And I'm hoping that somebody shows up. Maybe today. Maybe today. I put out my flags and wore my best shirt. Haven't even got it dirty yet. We'll just see what shows up. Well, this is the Crazy Mountain Man telling you a little bit about Rendezvous. Short time from 1825, and I reckon this here's gonna end sometime. And probably about 1840s they're gonna get rid of all this stuff. They'll have white women coming up, and then they'll ruin the place, I'm sure. At least that's what some folks say. And here from the Rocky Mountains, drinking some fine mixture of tea anyway. And we'll say goodbye for now. Later on we'll hopefully show you some more stuff around here. The tent and whatnot. Maybe we'll show you the campfire and some food.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. I found it very interesting. I love historical stories. And I'll try to encourage the Crazy Mountain Man to tell us a lot more stories. Very versed in the stories of the Old West and the Mountain Man's and early frontier days. It's fascinating stuff. And I'll get him to share some more with us. And look out for the future videos that I'm making that around the Montana Black Powder Shoot of 2020. Rendezvous or Rendezlone. If you enjoyed this type of content, don't forget to like, share, and make comments below. And we'll see you in the next video of the Crazy Mountain Man's Rendezvous Shoot 2020.
This is like a cocoon.
What comes out of a cocoon?
Butterflies.
Are butterflies beautiful?
Yeah.